My name's Phil Jade, and I am an alcoholic. Oh. I haven't done this in a while, and that's a good thing. And usually when I take a break and come back and do it, it runs real long. Like usually 2 hours or something like that. And I told that to Kirk, and he said, well, the clock will be very interested in what you have to say for the last hour, and I'll give you the key to lock the door on your way out. It's one of the great things about the respect you get when you get here. I am a member of the Common Cause group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Carthage, North Carolina. It is my home group. I was told to do a few things when I first got here. One was to get a home group, another was to get a sponsor, another was to work the steps. And it seems to be working. I need to let you all know that I am not a spokesman for Alcoholics Anonymous. There are some things that I may say this evening that somebody might say he's crazy, and you're pretty close to right. And in the event, and there is a possibility that I might offend somebody, I do apologize now. And if you have a problem with it, pray about it and talk to your sponsor and forgive me, please. The other thing that I will try desperately not to do, I am a recovering, cursing, gutter language individual. And it has taken a very long time. And I may still drop an F-bomb. And it is not my intention, again, to offend anybody, but it's a practice that I'm trying to change. One of the things that I understand about F-bombs, the more unhappy I am, the more unspiritually fit I am, the more angry I am, the more F-bombs I drop. And I've learned that it is an indicator of how I'm doing with my fellow man, my Creator, and me. So we'll see. And the other thing I want to tell you is that I always give 3 talks. Always have, always will. The first one is the one I was going to do on the way here tonight. The second one is the one that I will actually share with y'all. And the third one will be the one I wish I had said on the way home. I've always done it that way. Funny thing, when I did this for the first time, I was less than 100 days sober, and I volunteered. And one of the things that I had not done is I had not done a 5th step before I did that first telling of my story. And I will share my experience, strength, and hope with you. Don't do that. You will be amazed what comes out of your mouth, and you'll wish that it didn't come out in front of a whole bunch of people. So I have learned to do 5th steps with one other person who I trust. It was really neat tonight because my sponsor and I went out to eat, and then we came down here, and we got to talking about being old. And I don't seem to be able to get around that. It seems to be gaining on me. And fortunately, I'm not nearly as old as I think I am. But we have been doing that together for close to 30 years now. And that's pretty amazing. My sobriety date is February 5th, 1986. And I have not found it necessary to take a drink from then till now. I do indeed hope you all understand that that doesn't mean I didn't want to. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is the disease of alcoholism, and how I firmly believe that drinking alcohol is only one of the symptoms of the disease of alcoholism. You know, I came back from Myrtle Beach today. And I'd been down there, and I'd been several places, and I've driven a lot and everything, and I use GPS and I'm to find a golf course, to find a restaurant, to find my way home, you know. And I've come to understand that my relationship with my GPS is exactly the same relationship I have with my higher power. And we get in the car, and I go, okay, man, we're ready. And I plug it in. I say, take me there. And I got total faith and trust in you. Everything will be cool. And I swear to God, we won't get 150 yards out of the driveway. And I'll go, that can't be right. What is going on here? There is no way. That can't. We're going the wrong way. This is insane. And I was coming back here this afternoon, and I swear to God, that thing it had lost its mind. My higher power had lost its mind. It was taking me places that I had never been before. And I mean, there was nothing but pine trees everywhere. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what will I do if I break down? What's going to happen? And all this kind of stuff. And I'm driving on, and it's telling me to make turns, and there are almost dirt roads and all this stuff. And I'm going, this thing has lost its mind. Got home 25 minutes faster than I did on the way down. What do you think? See, it wasn't lack of power for me, it was lack of trust. That was my dilemma. And the biggest mistake I ever made was I thought I had power. And I thought I could control drinking, and I thought I could control people, and I thought I could control places and things. And by walking through the 12 steps time and time again, I've come to understand that I have none, and I don't want any. Being powerless is a blessing. It's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. You know, I'm just curious. Has anybody in this room ever had a blackout? Has anybody in this room ever woke up after the morning, sometime in the morning after the night before, and felt a very large amount of shame, guilt, and remorse? Anybody ever had a DWI in this room? I'll tell you what. Since we're all real familiar with all of that, how about if I talk about something else? You know, I remember waking up after the night before in January of 1986, and I had just lost a very, very large amount of money on a football game. I found that the woman next to me was not my wife, and I wasn't real sure where I was. And I made a vow to myself, if I could get back to the house and I could get clean up, I'd never, ever drink again. And that was my first attempt at never, ever drinking again. And that was on a Monday morning after the Super Bowl, and I want you all to know that I held strong to that conviction, and I made it all the way till Tuesday afternoon. I did, all by myself. And then I had this idea that maybe if I had one, things would be better. And I can honestly share with you that I had one, and that is the last thing that I remember because I blacked out. And see, I have seen over the years that this disease is progressive. Whether you water it down or not, it keeps growing. So I blacked out on one drink 30 some odd years ago. So there's a pretty good chance that I would not be in a good situation if I chose to drink again. And when I woke up that next morning, I realized that I could not stop drinking because I had all the want to I could, and I could not stop drinking. And I knew that there was a solution, and that was to blow my brains out. And I got all cleaned up and got dressed and went down to my office and took my gun and put it on the desk and sat there and thought about it for a while. And started crying and couldn't understand what was going on because I had every single thing that everybody talks about. If only they had, they wouldn't get drunk. And I couldn't understand how I had done everything that they had told me to do to be a success, and I was, according to them, a success. I had all the physical trappings. I had the house, the cars, and the beautiful wife and everything like that. And I'm sitting there looking at a gun, getting ready to blow my brains out because I can't stop drinking. What's this about? And you know, my higher power has one of the greatest senses. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of names that I use and I'll use higher power, and I'll use creator, and I'll use God, and I'll use the big ranger, because there is nothing on this planet that can describe in a word what I have come to understand about a power that's greater than me. And one of the things that held me back for so long in this program was the limitation of my idea of a word. And I had an idea of what God was, and because of that, I couldn't take the third step for a long time. Because I was firmly convinced when I made the decision, the God of my understanding was going to go, hell no, I don't want anything to do with you, boy. And that's what I thought. So I couldn't do it. And that created some real serious situations in my life, because I had now figured out that I was powerless. I was pretty sure that I was crazy because I was getting ready to eat a gun. And I knew that the only thing to do was to look for a higher power. And I knew that that wouldn't work because I knew the higher power wouldn't want anything to do with me. And the funniest thing happened. I got ready to go for the gun, and I picked up the phone. Because in between the reaching for the gun and the reaching for the phone, I said that world-famous prayer that some of us know in here, God, please help me. Now, isn't it strange that someone who doesn't believe in God is asking God to help them? I thought it was. And what I did is I called a treatment center, because in this little tiny town that I lived in Tennessee, there was a treatment center. And there was a lady who worked there, and every time she saw me in town, she would say, you've got a problem and you need some help. And I mean, I would duck that lady in the grocery store. I would do everything in the world because she'd stick her finger in my chest. Well, that's who I called. And that's where I went. And that's where it took 2 weeks to detox me. And that's where I took a crash course in Alcoholics Anonymous and graduated with honors, and went home and waited patiently for them to call me so that I could tell them to do what they needed to do with the patients who were still there. Because I knew what they needed to do. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got to work on graduating, because, you know, I've heard many, many people say that they walked in and they found exactly what they were looking for. I did not want what y'all had. I really did. I just didn't want what I had. But I knew that I had to do some things, and I had to work the steps, and I had to do this, and I had to do that. And I so vividly remember the first time I did a fifth step. I did it with an Episcopal priest, and I drove to a town far away so nobody would know this stuff I was about to tell somebody and everything. And I sat down with him, and I poured out everything that I had ever done. And I was waiting for him to say to me that it was the greatest fifth step he had ever heard in his life. And that SOB looked at me and he said, "Son, you got a good start." I was pissed. I mean, I was really, really pissed. And so I said, the heck with this. I did a fifth step, nothing happened. You can forget about 6 and 7, 8 and 9 and 10, 11 and 12. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to go to meetings, but I know this deal with these steps, this trust issue that I have. I know that something's just not right, so I'm not going to do it. And I continued to go to meetings, and I continued to talk to my sponsor. And I was doing so well. I was walking home one night back to the house after picking up my 6-month chip. And wife number 2, who was with me at the time, looked at me and she said, "You know, Bill," she said, "you were a son of a bitch when you were drinking, and you're a son of a bitch now." And she said, "I really want you out of the house first thing in the morning." And I'm going, wait a minute, I'm not drinking. How can this be? Now, I just couldn't understand her attitude, because I would do things. I would get up in the morning and I would come into the kitchen and I was sober and I'd been to a meeting and I would say, "Get in the car, we're going to go have fun." And she wouldn't be excited. I couldn't understand what was going on, because I still had power and I had to make this happen and I had to make things come out the right way. And she said, "I'm serious. I want you out of the house tomorrow morning." And she was serious. And I did leave. And I moved into a little studio apartment. I said, "So, this is what Alcoholics Anonymous gets you, huh? You go from 3,000 square feet to 400 square feet." And I knew there was a solution. I immediately went to a meeting and found a young winette to help me understand what was going on. And everything was just fine until the sheriff knocked on the door and he served me my papers of divorce. And all of a sudden I began to wonder, maybe there was a problem. And maybe it was me. And maybe it had to do with the third step. So I went home one night after a meeting and I got down on my knees for the first time ever. And I said, "God help me." And I had this profound spiritual experience, and I saw lights and all kinds of grand stuff and everything like that. And I said, "Man, this is amazing." And I jumped in the car and I ran over to my sponsors and I knocked on the door. It was 12 o'clock at night. And I knocked on the door and I said, "Al, let me tell you what just happened." And he looked at me and he said, "Thank God that's over with. Now we can get to work." And we did. We went to work. Because I realized what I had done when I had done that last 5th step. I took all that stuff that I had poured out to that priest. I put it in a plastic bag and I flung it over my shoulder. And then all that crap oozed out on me because I was too scared to do 6 and 7. Because I was going to have a lengthy debate with God about which character defects we were going to work on and which ones we weren't. And Al, my sponsor, said, "It doesn't work that way, Bill. You don't make that decision." So I began to do the other things that everybody had talked about, and my life began to get a little bit better. The only thing was there was this divorce going on, and there was all kinds of money involved and everything like that, and it was really getting ugly, and it was really getting difficult, and I really and truly wasn't making any money, and I really and truly was going bankrupt. And I knew that bankruptcy was only for losers. So here it is, I'm coming up on 2 years, and I'm chewing on a gun again. Haven't had anything to drink. And I find out that I am relapsing. I have not relapsed, but I am relapsing. Relapse being a process that ends when I take the drink. And my other sponsor had been to a treatment center up in Harvard de Grace, Maryland. A young fellow by the name of Father Martin ran the place. And he said, "Bill," he said, "you need to go up there. You need some help, man." And I walked in up there after catching a flight out of Nashville. And I sat down with my counselor, and the first question she asked me, she said, "How many AA meetings do you go to a week?" And man, I puffed up and I got all big and proud and said, "I go to 14 or 15 meetings a week." And she said, "You're almost 2 years sober." I said, "Yes." She said, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm back at my sponsor's table in the house in Tennessee when I told him I wanted to be normal. And he told me normal was a cycle on a washing machine. The only thing that I really wanted and needed was balance. It's what I've been chasing ever since. And so I go through all this stuff at Harvard to Grace, and I go through everything, and I get to have Mass every morning with Father Martin and all this stuff, and I am one miserable, awful, pitiful, whiny baby. I mean, it is incredible how much I'm whining. And I want to go back to Nashville. And they're saying if you go back to Nashville, you'll relapse, you'll die. And they said, we'll send you to a halfway house in Memphis. And I said, well, you know, it's only 2 hours from Memphis to Nashville. I'll be home before you know it. And they said, all right, smart ass, we'll send you to California. And I said, you're going to send me to a halfway house in California? They said, with your attitude, it's probably a good idea. Still not real willing in all of this stuff, just scared. And so, sure enough, I pack my little car and I ride out to San Jose, California, and I plug into a halfway house with 19 other charming men. And I get to experience halfway house living for 100 days. Whew. Man, that'll change you. You either grow or go. And what I would do when I was out there, because I was still poor, pitiful, whiny me, is I'd get up in the morning before anybody else was up in the house, and I'd walk down to the park and cry. And then I'd come back to the halfway house and have breakfast and fight over food and do all the things. And then try to use the bathroom and know how that doesn't work. And you know, it was absolutely, positively the best thing that could ever happen to me. And it was the beginning of understanding how little power I really and truly have, and how difficult it is to have relationships. See, I always thought relationships was who I was having sex with. And today I understand I have a relationship with everybody in this room. I have a relationship with those people on the wall over there. They came down to make sure I didn't lie. And you know, I guess the important thing to remember about all this is a story. This is my experience, strength, and hope. The facts are the same. The way that I look at them tonight are vastly different than the way I looked at them 30 years ago. And some of those people who were absolutely horrible in my life, who did all kinds of terrible, mean things to me, were without a doubt some of the best teachers I ever had. And I did not understand that teachers come in many shapes and forms. And the way that I find out the lessons that I am to learn is to be willing to not drink and find out and ask God what it is that I'm supposed to do next. See, I've come to understand that prayer is about asking, not telling. And for many, many years, even though I was on my knees and I was doing all that stuff, I was still telling God what it was that he, she, or it needed to do. I was still telling the Creator that this is what needs to happen. And I've gone through this lengthy thing about learning how to pray. And I've been to meditation seminars and everything. And how am I going to learn how to pray? And I've read books on it and everything like that. And I finally got it. It's taken almost 34 years, but I finally know how to pray. And I have 3 prayers. Help, help now, thank you. And the cool thing that they taught me when I first came here is God heard me the first time I said those prayers. And see, what I used to do is I would drive around saying, oh God, don't let me drink today. Oh God, don't let me drink today. Please God, don't let me drink. Please, 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 please. And my sponsor would say, God heard you the first time, son. And see, that's part of that I didn't understand. So I come roaring back from the halfway house, and guess what? There's only one place to go, and I have to move in with Mom and Dad. And I know that there are some people in this room have experienced it, and I'm telling you, when you're in your mid-30s and you move back in with Mom and Dad, it ain't no fun. And the coolest thing my father ever did in all the years that we fought each other, I came in, he came from Wisconsin, I came from California, we came to Pinehurst, we moved in the house, we were there 2 days. He said, "Son, we're going to go have a cup of coffee now." And I went, "Oh God, here it comes." So we jump in the car and we go and we have a cup of coffee, and he says to me, he says, he said, "We tried this about 18 years ago, and it didn't work real well then. It really and truly didn't." He said, "Go find yourself a place to live, and I will pay your rent for the first 2 months." Greatest thing the man ever did for me. And I'm telling you, I moved into this little tiny apartment over in Aberdeen, and after coming out of that halfway house, it felt like a palace. There is something special about not having to knock on the bedroom door and or the bathroom door and or the kitchen door when you want to use those rooms. You can just go in there if it's your place. It was really neat. I really liked it. And see, the thing that was also going on with all of this, when they sent me out to California, they gave me an aftercare program, and they said, what you will do is you will go to only 3 meetings a week, and you will only go to men's meetings. And you will not date, you will not socialize, you will not have any kind of relationship with a female for 1 year. I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yes. You got some stuff you need to work on, Bill, and you need to do it by yourself." Interesting premise. So I do what they say, and I don't. And I've made it a year, and I'm absolutely fine. And I'm working over what some of y'all may remember as McBrayer Honda. It's now Leith or something like that. And there is a lady down looking at cars, and myself and another salesman are standing there, and our boss, who used to sit right over there, says, "One of you better get down there and talk to her." And we flipped a coin, and I lost. And I went down and talked to her. And 60 days later, we were married. And that was a little over 30 years ago. And if we continue to speak to each other as we have been, next month we will have been married 31 years. And one of the miracles of this program, that is 31 years of a monogamous relationship with one woman. And that is the 12 steps working in my life, in addition to helping me not drink. Wow. And you know, I was sitting right in the middle of this room when I picked up my 3-year chip. The 2-year chip I picked up was in Father Martin's. That's kind of weird. And see, that's when I know that drinking is only a symptom. And I can be way more messed up than I ever thought about being messed up without any booze in me. So I get it all together and everything like that. I move to the beach. I'm living the life as a dream, and everything is absolutely fine. My friends are coming to see me at the beach, and things are working real well. I developed some new relationships with some real special guys, and I'm working for them, and I'm having a blast, and I'm just absolutely fine. And I come back up here, and I'm going to give Phil his 10-year chip, and I decide to take Alcoholics Anonymous inventory. And as I am handing him his 10-year chip, I'm talking about how screwed up y'all are. Because you've got a day-at-a-time program that you're giving chips out for. And that's how self-centered I had become. And I quit going to meetings. I got pissed off and I quit going to meetings. And I did not walk into a meeting for 6 years. And I still talked to my sponsor. I still prayed. I still meditated. Every single morning I would walk on the beach and I would have these dialogues with God. My spirituality was growing. And the way I described that time in my life is I was fine. There was nothing wrong with me. Everybody else in the world was an asshole. And everybody else in the world was really, really bothering me. And the thing was that I was working in the hospitality industry as a waiter and a bartender. And when you don't like people and you're doing that for a living, it gets real challenging. My two best friends die within 60 days of each other. One blows his brains out and one wraps his Porsche around a tree. And I say, that's it, I'm done. I've had it. This life is just, it's insane. And I go to Susan and I say, we're selling everything and we're going to Alaska. She said, okay. So we sold everything, we went to Alaska. We rode around for a while, camped out, saw Mother Nature, had a really good time. Did some volunteer work in a park in Idaho, and had a real good time, and I felt better, and I came back, and I thought I was getting it back together, and that fortunately I would not have to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Got back, decided to move from the coast back up to Moore County, built a house, and while the house was being built, the park that I had volunteered in called and asked me if I would work full-time for them out in Idaho. And I said, sure. And I went. And if there is different degrees of dry drunk, I was at the end of dry drunk. Father Martin and the relapse prevention program have a whole program, and it has 36 warning signs. And you devise this system to let you know how you're doing. I had done it very diligently and spent a lot of time with it, and I knew exactly what was happening. And I knew exactly that I was just days away from getting drunk. And I'm working in this park, and I'm living in an RV, and I'm by myself, and I'm arguing with my wife over the telephone every day, and I'm getting ready to get drunk. And the guy who was the volunteer who took my old position is in talking to the park manager, and he said, we would like next weekend off. I want to go pick up a 20-year chip. So we walked out, and I walked up to him. I said, are you a friend of Bill Wilson? He said, yes. He said, are you? I said, I was. I said, I'm not real fond of him right now. He said, well, I understand that. He said, you're going to a meeting tonight. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I've done that and I don't want to do it anymore. He said, no, you didn't understand what I said. You're going to a meeting tonight. Roland was about this high, and he's pointing at me, talking to me, and telling me what I'm going to do. And I don't do real good with people telling me what to do. I just never have been able to get a hold of that concept. And so I said, thanks for being interested, but no thank you. I'm going up to my RV. And I went up to my RV. He said, I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. I said, you're not listening? And at 10 minutes till 5, he's got a little old Volkswagen, and he's sitting out there outside the door of my RV going, honk, honk, honk. And I open the door and I say, I told you I'm not going. Bam. Honk, honk, honk. Finally, I surrender. I get in his car. We go to the meeting. I sit down. And God, y'all, it was the most wonderful feeling I have had in my life. I was back. I was with y'all. I wanted to be with y'all. I missed y'all. And it just felt absolutely awesome. Ran across some of the greatest guys who are still dear friends of mine, and it just was fabulous. Roland, the guy who took me, he and I were out working in the woods one day, and he was telling me how this is how we really commune with God, and this is the way it's supposed to be. We're cutting down trees, we're doing all this stuff. I take him back to the top of the hill. He's going to work the registration desk, and he drops dead. So I go to the meeting that night, and a 6'5", 290-pound lumberjack puts his arms around me and has me sit down in his lap, and I cry. Now, you want to feel a part of? Absolutely amazing. My entire feelings for this fellowship completely changed. I began to totally understand that this is about us. This is not about me. Because every time it's about me, it gets screwed up. So, I hang with those guys out there for years, come back here, go back there, come back here, go back there. And life's pretty good. It really and truly is. Things begin to change in my personal life, and I make a commitment to stay here full time. And it gets a little more challenging. And, when Susan and I were living apart, people say, what's that like? I said, well, all the idiosyncrasies that your wife has that bothers you, go away for 6 months and they won't bother you anymore. And Susan will tell you all the idiosyncrasies that he has that bothers me. If he goes away for 6 months, they don't bother me anymore. Now, when you get back together, they bother you again, but just not as much. And see, that's, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can. Wow. The wisdom to know the difference. Wow. Big deal. So what? Is it a big deal? No. Do I make it a big deal? Yes. Do I think I know what you're thinking? Sure I do. And that's how it gets so screwed up. You know, the guy who brought me here many years ago taught me that I will be the same person today that I am tomorrow, and except for the people I meet and the books that I read. I cannot stay away from books. Books have changed my life. The people that I meet have changed my life. If it were not for the books that I read and the people I meet and the steps that I work, I'd still be that guy sitting there with a gun in his mouth. I really and truly would. And you know, I have relationships now. Not what I thought they were when I first came here. There's guys sitting on that wall over there that I've been hanging around for 30 years. You know, the reason why Phil and I sponsor each other, it's a little bit unusual. Our damn sponsors kept dying on us. Because we'd get these old timers, and they were really good, but they wouldn't last long. They were old, man. And they'd check out, and then we'd go get some more, and they'd die. And finally, he and I are riding around one day. We're going somewhere to tell a story, and he says, don't you think maybe we ought to just sponsor each other? I said, yeah, we might as well. My wife says, do you call it sponsoring or enabling? I say, well, it all depends on the day. AJ said he came down here to keep me honest tonight. I told him bigger men than he have tried, and it's never worked, because I can honestly tell you I will lie. Not on purpose as much as I used to, but I will lie. See, the things that I'm talking about tonight, they happen, but the way they look and the way they are two completely different things. Because the way I viewed them back then is not the way I view them now. That man who gave me 2 months free rent when I was 35 years old, when he did that, I hated his guts. I love him to death now. I've buried my family in this program. All of them. I miss them. And you know the corny thing about if I could just have one more sit down with them? That's so true. And I figured out a way to do that. I write them letters. People say, well, that's stupid. I said, well, I tell you what I do. I write letters to my daddy. I write letters to my mom. I write letters to my sister. I take them out behind my house. I read them out loud, and then I burn them. And sure enough, when I'm sponsoring somebody, they'll say, that's the dumbest damn thing I ever heard of. And I will say to them, have you ever tried it? And they say, no. And there's a little thing in our book that talks about contempt prior to investigation will keep you in everlasting ignorance. Hello. I have spent a lot of time in everlasting ignorance. It's getting smaller. Some days it's gone. You know, I have a new vocabulary now. I can talk about gratitude. I can talk about compassion. I can talk about grace. When I look around this room, the only thing I see is grace. You know, I was driving down here many years ago to do an 11-step meeting, and I was going to lead the discussion, and Amazing Grace came on the radio station. And I had to pull off the side of the road because I was boo-hooing. I could not see. I had alligator tears and everything like that because I was a wretch and I was lost. And it's so cool to be found. And this relationship that I have developed with the Creator is without a doubt the most fabulous thing that's ever happened to me. Because we still have disagreements like the GPS and I. We still don't exactly see eye to eye where we're going. And my Creator has told me time and again that what I have is a lack of information situation. Because I don't have all the information. Whereas Creator does. Creator has my best interests at heart. And I need to be quiet and listen. Because I cannot hear God when my mouth is running. And that's part of what happened today coming back, because I was telling y'all what I was going to tell you coming back from Myrtle Beach, but y'all weren't there. But I was telling you. And it was going and going. And I finally said to Creator, I said, I need to be quiet. And to tell you how well I don't listen, half a dozen years ago around this time, I've decided out in Idaho, we used to shovel roofs, snow, so they wouldn't fall in. And I'm up at my house one day with its metal roof and everything like that, and I decide I need to shovel the snow off the roof. Well, I can see from the expression on some people's face, you got an idea where this thing is going. I slipped and fell. I fractured my pelvis. I went to the emergency room, and here's the coincidental grace of the whole thing. It was a winter storm. The doctor comes in and says, we cannot get a helicopter. You're bleeding internally. We have a guy we think might be able to stop the bleeding. And if we don't try this procedure, which he has never done before, you're going to die. What do you want to do? Really? Bring him on, man. Let's go. And see, the thing that's so screwed up about it is that took 10 hours to get to that point, and the whole time I'm laying there, my wife's sitting there, and my sponsor's sitting next to my wife. And this is on Valentine's Day. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. And now here's the real fun part that I know you're going to love. Operation was a success. The treatment was 100 days on my back in bed. I grew real close to my Creator. I cried a lot. I prayed a lot. I meditated a lot. And the miraculous thing about all of that is I was able to walk from there to here tonight, breathing in and out. No reason I should be. I should be dead. If not dead, at least paralyzed. But it's by the grace of a power greater than me that I get to do this. I'm coming down here tonight. I'm cruising along. I'm going around the circle in Pinehurst. Y'all want to know what's up above? Yes. A helicopter. And it's getting ready to life flight somebody out. And he's coming down into the hospital as I'm coming around the circle, as I'm coming down here to talk to y'all. Coincidence? Sure, if you want it to be. I'll take it as another miracle. Thanks, guys.